Welcome to everyone here in person today and to everyone who is visiting our service from home. The UU Fellowship of Lake Norman, also known as the Unitarians of Lake Norman, is an open and inclusive congregation. Our members walk diverse paths to find meaning and purpose, but we are united by our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all, and by the responsibility to express our faith through acts of justice and compassion. My name is Regina Burchett, and I have been an active member of this congregation since 2017. I would also like to add that you are welcome to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. Just send us an email at news@uulakenorman.org. Our musician today is Teresa Woody, and we are grateful to her for her music. Our speaker today is Reverend Pat Jobe, who joined our fellowship in 2020. He is married to his lovely spouse, Gabe, and is an enthusiastic supporter of Unitarians of Lake Norman, FeedNC, Heart of the Carolinas UU Animal Ministry, and all work done by UUs in our neck of the woods. Pat will now give our opening words.
I do have opening words, but before I give them, I want to add a word of welcome to Marilyn. Marilyn lives in Lincoln County, Jim, and she does not like dogs on chains. She says anytime that she can show up to help build a fence to get a dog off a chain, she'll be there. So that's great. And Loretta Fodry signed the book this morning. Loretta, welcome, a new member. And today, you all are getting 2 sermons for the price of 1. This morning, I spoke at I knew you'd be thrilled, Tracy. I spoke at the Church of the Exceptional in Rutherford County, which is a church for people who are mentally and physically challenged, or as they like to say, exceptional. And it really is an amazing experience. I hope that someday some of you get to experience it. They sing, they recite scripture, and most of it is completely unintelligible. I stood next to a woman in a wheelchair, and as the hymns were being sung, if she heard a note that she liked, she would attempt to sing it. But most of the notes she didn't like. But when she did sing, she really belted it out. So it was an amazing experience. But my sermon for them involved this bean can. And I told them that mother's love is like a bean can. It surrounds you and you're contained by your mother's love. And you're the rock inside the bean can. You're being loved by your mother. You're the rock. And your mother's love, not your mother, but your mother's love is the bean can. And it always surrounds you. It's always there. Your mother loves you no matter what. Quinn, you might file that away. Your mother loves you no matter what. So I told them that things are not always smooth, that sometimes the relationship with your mother sounds like this. But for the most part, she's still going to love you. She's still going to love you no matter what. But I said, there may come a time when you get out of the can and you're way over here and mama's love is way over here. But I said, that's not the end of the world because you're still alive. You're still alive in the presence of the universe. The sun is still shining. The wind is still blowing. The water is still flowing. So that's sermon number 1, Tracy. There's only one more to go. Yeah. Our opening words come from Albert Einstein. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them.
Okay. Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words, which are in your order of service. We light this flaming chalice to illuminate the world we see. In our search for truth, may we be just. In our search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. We will now hear from Autumn Weathers, our Religious Education Director.
Hi. In a minute, I'm going to have Ellery come up and she's going to transfer our chalice. But I just want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. Last month, we did it was actually more than a month, I say month, but we extend it sometimes. We did a lot of earth actions, asking people to not use pesticides, and we created all kinds of new cards that we sent off to the folks at Bank of America when they held their Green Faith vigil outside of Bank of America, asking them not to invest in fossil fuels. And I heard that it went over very well. And so today we're actually going to be talking a little bit about moms and our love for moms. And I think because we have so much energy, we're going to go out to the park and then come back in. So anybody that would like to join us is welcome. Eller, you can come up forward and you can help transfer our chalice over to our room, and we can go. If you'd like to stand, if you're willing, able, and we'll be singing the song that's printed on the back of the order of service, Spirit of Life.
We'll now have our centering music by Teresa Woody.
I knew that was going to be good. Last week we sang "This Land," and it was pointed out to me after the service that it was a bit of a struggle for us. And there's one verse in particular that I'm really fond of, and the reason I'm going to sing that verse and sing the chorus a couple of times this morning is because when I was at the Church of the Exceptional this morning, one of the worship leaders said I evoked Jimmy Rogers, the father of country music. So I'm kind of swelled up right now. This land is your land. This land is my land. California, New York Island, Redwood Forest. There's some wrong words. New York Island. This land was made, you and me. Ain't nobody living, never gonna stop me. As I walk down that freedom highway. Ain't nobody living, never gonna make me turn back now. This land was made, you and me. I remember the words. This land was made. Well, that's what you get for swelling up. Yeah, if you ever get to thinking you're Woody Guthrie, you're in trouble too. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Okay, shift gears. As the Russian army began to amass troops and equipment on the Ukrainian border in February last year, one of the NATO generals scoffed. A land war in Europe in the 21st century? Oh, surely not. Now that tens of thousands have died on both sides, the unthinkable has come to pass, and the dreams of 19th century Unitarians and 21st century Quakers, the people who allow us to meet in this room, all those dreams of peace seem as distant as the moon or worse. How many of you have started turning off your radios when you listen to the news, or changing channels when it gets too tough, or turning off your news feed on your internet server? Let's back up. At the end of the American Civil War, Ann Jarvis, a West Virginian whose home had been a hospital for wounded of both armies, began an effort to commemorate Mother's Day as a peace holiday. You can only imagine. Her home, by the way, is now in the National Register of Historic Places. She wanted a holiday when all the mothers of the world would be counted on to decry war and beg all the governments of the world to abandon the practice of maintaining standing armies and constantly preparing for war. She had seen the worst of it as her rambling West Virginia farmhouse had taken in the war-ravaged survivors of many battles near her home. Again, we can only imagine the smells and the sights she endured. Her daughter Anna took up the cause in the decades that followed. We are getting a new podium next week. Her daughter Anna took up the cause in the decades that followed, and she was joined by our famous Unitarian ancestor, Julia Ward Howe. Julia's story is soaked in irony from several directions. First off, she was heartbroken to have inspired so many troops serving in the United States Army with the now famous Battle Hymn of the Republic, a song so stirring and inspiring that many credit it with being a great part of the victory of the North over the South. She offers praise to her God of war with lines like, "I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. I can read his righteous sentence by their dim and flaring lamps." And after hearing Teresa play it this morning, you can imagine the impact that it had on those soldiers. Yes, she was a passionate abolitionist and believed the triumph of the soldiers in blue was also the end of slavery in the rebellious South. Slavery was repackaged and reincarnated in Jim Crow laws and scandals like convict leasing and oppressive practices of tenant farming. But the worst scandal for Howe was the bloodshed. Numbers of battlefield dead ran to the hundreds of thousands, and another hundreds of thousands went home missing arms, legs, and bearing other scars of battle. The writer of the battle hymn was heartsick that her beautiful lines of song lyrics would inspire the butchery of war. But Howe's irony was not just her heart sickness over war. She was also in a lousy marriage. Now, how can we expect world peace when we haven't even figured out marital peace? Her jealous husband envied her success and fame and needled her with constant criticism. Now, I'm about to say some things that might be objectionable. But I've been reading Black Elk's biography, and the Lakota Sioux Oglala holy man saw much of his holy work to be that of the sacred clown or fool. It was part of his job to make a fool of himself in order that others might see the fool in their own lives. I know he didn't know Woody Guthrie, so he didn't mess up the singing of that song. But part of his work was to be contrary or objectionable. So here goes. If you don't like it, let me know. And if you do like it, tell your friends. Men should always agree that their wives are right.
I like it.
Yes, dear.
I had a coworker who said he always got the last word in his marriage. Yes, dear. Any conflict in a marriage should be quickly resolved with, oh, yes, dear, I was mistaken. I believe in this situation, you're right. There are actually psychological studies that show that the longest lasting marriages are between a man who is often wrong and a woman who is always right. If this sounds like I am recommending that men should be doormats for abusive wives who treat their husbands like sniveling little slaves, I am not. But just shy of that. Women are always right. Regina, I haven't heard an amen out of you yet.
Amen.
I once did a sermon on marital bliss, after which a man walked up to me and said these words. Last night, my wife asked me, do you want to win this argument or do you want to have sex with me tonight? That example does not encapsulate the entirety of the situation, but it comes darn close. Male dominance, paternalism, discrimination against women for nothing more than being women is a vast network of criminal, inhumane activity that dates back for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. Science and common sense tell us that women are always right. And those of us who might occasionally hope to win an argument to the contrary would do well to reconsider. Quinn, I'm softening you up, buddy. I'm softening you up. Dale Carnegie states in his internationally successful book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that nobody ever wins an argument anyway. A temporary victory just leaves the loser angry and resentful, and that is ultimately no win at all. But that is the world out of which came Julia Ward Howe, a famous Unitarian who deeply regretted writing the battle hymn and spent much of her remaining years arguing against war, standing armies, and the inhumanity of mass killing in war. In the late 19th century, World's Fairs had gained popularity, and there were international conferences of multi-faith groups that began to hint that utopian ideals of peace and cooperation might well be possible. Julia Ward Howe and the Unitarians of her day were much of that tribe. Sadly, we know that the 20th century would follow as the deadliest in world history, from not only the continued worshiping of the gods of war, but also the advancement of the machinery of war to the point, and this is so sad, that 8 million horses and mules died in the service of the U.S. Army in World War I because of combat that involved machine guns and tanks against cavalry troops and horse-drawn caissons and wagons. I know some of you may have wished for a different Mother's Day message. We can certainly take pride that Ann Jarvis and Julia Ward Howe worked together for peace and for women to take the lead in casting off our deadly passions for war. It ended up that Ann's daughter, Anna, got the credit for Woodrow Wilson signing the law that created the first Mother's Day. But sources say she was well aware of her mother's friendship with Julia Ward Howe and her affinity for the cause of peace. Listen to this from Julia Ward Howe, which Regina was kind enough to include partially in our newsletter this week. And yes, I did read the newsletter. May it be said of us all. Julia Ward Howe wrote in her Mother's Day declaration, "Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be that of water or of tears. Say firmly, We will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for carcasses and applause. Caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be so tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence vindicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means by where the great family, the great human family, can live in peace, each bearing after his own kind the sacred impress not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask that a General Congress of Women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. In the end, Anna Jarvis was so put out with the commercialization of Mother's Day that she circulated a petition to have it rescinded. You've probably noticed that it didn't go anywhere. Next time you hear a college choir or Elvis Presley sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic, please remember that Julia Ward Howe deeply regretted having written it. You can't hardly turn over a rock in this sermon and not find irony. Here's another irony for you. Contained within this room are any number of people who have right and solid opinions about the nature of reality and the reality of nature. This congregation is populated with many good and decent and right thoughts and beliefs about how life works and how much better life would work if only more people thought like us. And why is this ironic? Because so many people think we're wrong, and they are wrong to think that. Sometimes it staggers the imagination how wrong people can be who are in a position to do better, and yet they won't because they haven't learned how to think like us. If that's not ironic, it's at least a crying shame and dumber than a box of rocks. Now, here are the questions for the talkback. Why is this so hard? On every issue from gun violence to world peace, why is this so hard? As the legislature gets ready to vote next week to override the veto of North Carolina's latest abortion ban, why is this so hard? What answers do you have for a world at war, a United States where gun violence is so rampant, a North Carolina trying to drive unwanted pregnancies into the back alley hells of yesterday, and all this wrong thinking around everything from climate change to whitewashed curriculum in our public schools? Why is this so hard? Regina, get up here and help me supervise this crowd. Why is this so hard? And if you have an answer to that question or any other question raised by the sermon, please come up here to speak so that the people at home can hear you and see you. Why is this so hard?
I don't have an answer, but I do have a question.
Okay.
Just that I have asked myself for many years now, if she really thought that mothers were the solution. We're still sadly lacking because of all the mothers that support unlimited gun rights.
Oh, yeah. Well, and lots of the other issues in here. Mothers have not answered Julia Ward Howe's invitation to take over the world, but there's still time. Anybody? Come on, Sandy. Come on. Come on. El Presidente. I'm sorry. You see how little Spanish I know.
It may be an oversimplification, but war makes money for a lot of people. It certainly helped the U.S. economy after the Great Depression and in the mid-century, did us a world of good. But all those guns come from companies that make them and sell them. They don't give them away free. And they make a whole lot of money out of guns. And the companies that make the AR-15s that Walmart sells, they don't give them to Walmart to give away. It's all money. I don't know the answer to making that change or stop, but if people didn't make so much money from war and just selling guns and putting up flags, they wouldn't be doing it. Tracy is not the only cynic in this house.
I think it was Chris Rock say, why don't they make bullets cost $5,000? He said, we don't need to change anything else. Just make bullets go for $5,000. Then when I get really mad at you and I'm going to save my money. When I got $5,000, I'm going to kill you. Come ahead, George.
Well, this is in the vein of doing a little bit that you can. And one of the things that I promote is contra dancing. You laugh. I was at a contra dance last night, and I have said for years that people should be forced to contra dance before they're given a driver's license. Because it teaches cooperation and everyone moving in sequence, in time. So it will alleviate some of the tensions because we're all moving in the same place. And it, in correlation with what Pat just said, one of the rules of contra dancing is the woman is always right. Because it's almost unheard of that when the moves end, that the woman winds up anywhere but on the man's right. So we teach it that the woman's always right. So, and it teaches cooperation. And I also, in fact, I told a new dancer last night, we were at the contra dance in Charlotte, and I told a new contra dancer, contra dancing is a metaphor for life because almost every move takes you back to where you started. So that's in the vein of doing a little bit.
George. Yay. I don't know what contra dancing is. Could you explain that? Maybe I'm not a southerner.
Contra dancing is the only form of dancing that I feel competent at. It's done to traditional old fiddle tunes. And it predates square dancing, but it uses the same moves as square dancing. You swing your partner, you do-si-do, you allemande. There are various moves. Instead of doing it around a square, you do it in long lines. You and your partner are lined up next to each other, and you dance in pairs. There might be a line of 15 couples, and as the tune plays, you there's a caller, and they walk you through the dance. They explain the moves. And then you go through the sequence of the dance, and at the end of 32 measures of music, you progress to the next couple in line. So it's a dance of progression. That's where a lot of the cooperation part comes in, because you're supposed to arrive, you and your partner arrive at the next couple at the same time. So it is a form of cooperation with a large group of people.
Sounds like fun.
It's a lot of fun. Been doing it for over 30 years.
Anybody else? Yes, come, Teresa.
This is more of a personal anecdote and a gripe of mine, and less so much as of a pithy statement for a living, but I can turn it around a little bit by saying, perhaps if men started early teaching their sons to respect their mother's opinions and their intellect, then it could be homegrown, that women would have more respect, and therefore maybe perhaps there would be more respect for anyone. And my personal gripe is, last weekend I was up at our family farmhouse, or 2 weekends ago, 3. This was the other trip. I was there last weekend. And I, in scraping an old window that I had just painted the trim off, managed to push one of the panes of glass out. The what's it called? Glazing on the outside was really old and dried out and fragile. And I just pushed right through it. So the pane slipped down. And I caught it before anything happened to it. I didn't get cut, and it was there. And I appealed to my cousin and his friend, if they could just push the top pane down, we might be able to get that and pull it out. And I explained what the problem was, and then they took over. And then one of them said, well, there's no way to get it out. So, well, and I said, but if you just push the top pane down, you'll be able to get it out. No answer. So I said it again. And it was as if I wasn't even in the room. He didn't even hear me. And finally, his friend reached over and did what I was saying needed to be done. And the pane came out. And I turned to his wife and said, we're not even in the room, are we? That's the kind of treatment that women get all the time. People don't hear us. A lot of times, not always.
We hear you. We heard you right then.
Good, thank you.
Good story. Very illustrative. Shirley Chisholm served in Congress for a number of years. In fact, there are wonderful Shirley Chisholm stories that I'll tell on another time. But she said in Congress, she had far, far more trouble for being a woman than she did for being black. That the discrimination against women is much stronger. I think we've done good, Regina.
Thank you.
We'll now have a musical reflection from Teresa Wood.
This comes from the idea of treating everyone in the world, including ourselves, with love. And it's from an ancient or traditional Hebrew song called Olam Chesed Yibaneh, which is fill the world with love.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
This fellowship is important to us all. The contributions we make today allow us to sustain and grow our congregation and to reach out to our community, both nearby and in the larger world. Your giving affirms our commitment to each other and to the community. Thanks, Adam. With grateful hearts, we receive these gifts. May they encourage us to live lives of integrity, compassion, and peace. And thank you also to our members who volunteer so much of their time on our UU board, and also those who participate in numerous efforts to help out other humans, animals, and the earth. We are grateful for all you do. There's some announcements in your order of service. A couple of them, we often get together after the service to go someplace together, those that care to have a meal and just visit. And also the Heart of Carolina's UU Animal Ministry is having a fence build on Saturday, May 26th at 9 a.m. There will be 7 dogs on that street that they have will help be safe. And volunteers are always welcome. And Claudia's phone number is in the order of service if you would like to contact her. The closing song is number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Please stand as you are willing and able. Reverend Pat will now give our closing words.
Our closing words come from Julia Ward Howe's appeal to women. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace.
Please say with me the words in your order of service as I extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These to carry in our hearts until we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Jim.
Thank you.
Good job.
Very good job.
Yes.